We go to our first clip here. I want to show you what some SDAs have been saying. I need you to pay careful attention to this. If you were to look on the internet for, one moment, if you were to look for the expression Project 25, you would, 2025, Project 2025, thank you. You would see a lot of Seventh-day Adventists now talking about this. Project 2025, basically, I have to show you a little piece from Isaac Olatunji of State Line Seventh-day Adventist Church. Here comes Olatunji now. Last Sabbath, so, I think Sunday Law Update. Either the Sunday Law Update or in the morning. And he goes off on it too, man. Listen good. But I want to say to you that the portion that Nuggets read was not all. There was a portion just below it too that he needed to read as well, to be fair, where the people in Project 2025 are actually acknowledging that we have a division among ourselves. Some are saying we could do this. Some are saying no, don't put barriers to religious freedom. Leave it up to people if they want to pay overtime or not. Leave it up to people how they want to keep Sabbath, etc. So they actually acknowledge that in the document and all, and they say, we must admit basically there's an alternative view among us. Does this sound like a certain Sunday law that is going to for sure persecute us and not give any accommodation at all to Sabbath keepers? It sure doesn't.
Of the new administration to bring quick relief to Americans suffering from the left's devastating policies, the king of the South. This is the king of the North working now. Listen to this. You see playbook? Does this look familiar? The fourth pillar of our Project 2025 is our 180-day transition playbook and includes a comprehensive, concrete transition plan for each federal agency. Only through the implementation of specific action plans at each agency will the next conservative presidential administration be successful.
Let me just read what Brother Michael said here. He said, quote, that deception is so devious that 3-phase to the Sunday law removes the miracles that would cause the Sunday law. Thus, the 3 initiatives of Satan is removed, and the focus is put on the politicians by an agitation that is taking place now and not by miracles to enforce a Sunday law by legislation. Amen, brother. And this is why we say it breaks the pattern of the prophecy in Revelation 13:11-17, which we looked at. And Brother Medina, his very early statement showed that. That if anybody goes against the pattern, it means they don't have the spirit of prophecy. Don't follow them. Because in this presentation that Nuggets just made, there's no room for spiritualism's miracles. There's no point into the leading churches in America doing the miracles to push the politicians' hands. There's only a look at the politicians who are speaking of a Sabbath rest, but saying we're going to protect the religious liberty of Adventists, basically, Seventh-day Adventists. And because he sees that, but it's not sensational enough because he has to say, they always have to find another way to show Sunday law is coming, so they could maintain this reputation and this following they have of them as present truth speakers and as the ones who you should look to get present truth and get prophecy about Sunday law and so on. This preoccupation, right? Which is not according to the prophecy. We could be preoccupied with it. We should be. It is the third angel's message. But when it is not according to the prophecy, what you have is just this humanistic, or human-produced false prophetic utterances and speculations that are not according to the prophecy, but they have a following, and they want their following to figure they're in the know. In fact, one of the men who will speak in this video is criticizing Adventists for not talking about the Project 2025 enough. You'll hear.
What happens is, whoever it is, whether it's Trump or not, what happens is you're going to do as we say. Pillar 4 will provide the next president a what, somebody? For doing just that. To learn about Project 2025's vision for a conservative administration, please read our recently published book called Mandate for what, somebody? The conservative promise is 900 pages. 900 pages. Listen to this right here. This is deep. How many pages? 900. And guess what your pastor did? I pressed on it.
Guess what your pastor did?
Yes,
I
I
pressed
did.
on it.
And look what it says right here. I knew it. I said, you know what? All I want to know is, do they say anything in that mandate about Sunday laws or keeping the Sabbath? And guess what I found out? We talked about it last week at the Sunday Law Crisis. Look what it says. Sabbath rest. That's part of their conservative transition plan. God ordained the Sabbath as a day of what? Rest. Until very recently, the Judeo-Christian tradition sought to honor that mandate by moral and legal regulation of work on that day, aka Sunday blue laws. Moreover, a shared day off makes it possible for families and communities to enjoy time off together. Law of attraction.
When he said AKA Sunday blue laws, he was just saying that, right? That's not written there. Carefully don't believe that that is written there because he said it. It's not there, okay? Let me just play it back for you. It's the same thing that Nuggets was reading.
Sunday laws or keeping the Sabbath. And guess what I found out? We talked about it last week at the Sunday Law Crisis. Look what it says. Sabbath rest. That's part of their conservative transition plan. God ordained the Sabbath as a day of what? Rest. Until very recently, the Judeo-Christian tradition sought to honor that mandate by moral and legal regulation of work on that day, aka Sunday blue laws. Moreover, a shared day off makes it possible for families and communities to enjoy time off together. Law of attraction. Devil don't want me to say this. Hold on. Help me, Holy Spirit. Pray something. Damn. Rather, thank you, natural remedies, amen, then as an atomized individuals and provides a healthier cadence of life for everyone. Unfortunately, that communal day of rest, which we know to be is what? Has eroded under the pressures of consumerism and what else? Especially for low-income workers. Congress should encourage communal what? Stop. They should encourage it? Communal rest? That's not Congress's responsibility. Am I right, somebody? That's the employer's responsibility. Congress should encourage communal rest by amending the Fair Labor Standards Act to require that workers be paid time and a half for hours worked on the Sabbath. That day would default to what day? It is a tactic so that if you have your people work on Sunday, you got to pay all this money. And you know what they do when it comes to saving money? They make cuts. Am I right? In other words, we're not going to require you to work on Sunday no more. It's just a tricky way of saying get people off on Sunday. Except for employees with a...
It's just a tricky way of saying get people off on Sunday. Why don't you say this is just them seeking to strengthen religious liberty in the workplace? Why don't you say that? You know why I have to say that? Because you see, when you look at in the rest of the document, you would actually see that that's what they're saying. They made reference, Sister Kesha, at the bottom of the section under religion, which I had not highlighted at the time. They actually talk about the struggles and the problems that the postal worker had recently without calling his name. They talk about Christians at work who don't get religious exemption. They talk about strengthening the law to allow it to be harder for employers to deny religious exemption to employees. But they didn't read the document. They just see, oh, Sabbath rest. Oh, look, Sunday law coming, Project 2025. Let's listen.
Sincere religious observance of a Sabbath at a different time, Friday sundown to Saturday sundown. The obligation would transfer to that period. What? The obligation would transfer to that period what? Instead. Houses of worship. How do you
see how he flew over that? Somebody was asking what happened. My dear, he had a fit of coughing. That's all I can say. I found it very, very interesting that another one of them, when he was reading the document, he coughed too. Anyway, notice he read the portion that they would default to Sunday, except for employers with a sincere religious observance of a Sabbath at a different time. Example, Friday sundown to Saturday sundown. The obligation would transfer to that period instead. He read it and he just jumped over it to the next sentence. And then somebody was saying something. So he says, what's your interpretation? It's like he couldn't even explain it. The thing is obviously speaking of an exemption for Sabbath keepers, 7-day Sabbath keepers, by saying, okay, the default day that we are recommending Congress regulate for Sabbath is Sunday. But if there are people who keep another Sabbath, 7-day Sabbath, then the obligation of employers to pay overtime would transfer to that too. That's not in their interest to say that Seventh-day Adventists are getting exempted here. It's not in their interest to say that. But the point is, he too, like Nuges says there are 3 phases. He too will say, oh, well, it's a trick. It's just for now. You know, like the gentleman said in the beginning. So let's just hear that again.
The employer's responsibility. Congress should encourage communal rest by amending the Fair Labor Standards Act to require that workers be paid time and a half for hours worked on the Sabbath. That day would default to what day? Sunday. It is a tactic so that if you gonna have your people work on Sunday, you got to pay all this money. And you know what they do when it comes to saving money? They make cuts. Am I right? In other words, we're not going to require you to work on Sunday no more. It's just a tricky way of saying get people off on Sunday.
A tricky way.
Except for...
But if it's a tricky way of saying get people off on Sunday, why isn't it a tricky way of saying get people off on Saturday too? On 7-day Sabbath? Because they're given the same exception. They're given an exemption to Sabbath keepers too. To 7-day Sabbath keepers too.
Exactly.
You see? Brother Medina says here, and Brother Medina, thank you. Oh my gosh. Brother Medina says here, so far, there's no climate change Sunday law here. There's no people protagonist Sunday law here. Are they now seeing that they were wrong about a green Sunday law? Brother Medina. Brother Medina, don't talk too fast because time did not permit. But you know, he will preach now about Project 2025 and still bring in Pope Francis and Laudato Si. The Nuges did the same thing. He still brought in Pope Francis and Laudato Si. But you see, as what Brother Medina said there, it just goes to show you. Because watch, I could have come and shown you that Olatunji's, you remember the Fidelity Month bill that the Republican politician brought before Congress recently, Fidelity Month bill, and he and Larry went on a rampage and said, oh, just now, this is going to turn into Fidelity Day bill, and we know it's going to be Sunday. And we said, but they haven't even published the bill. You don't even know what is inside of the bill. Well, the bill came out. The bill is now published. And brethren, not a word about a Sunday law. Not one word about even a Sunday. It's talking about asking Congress to declare a month in the year Fidelity Month. Because it was a pushback against this, what? Pride Month of the LGBT. It has nothing in it about Sunday. But remember how he carried on for that? So 1 minute, it is Laudato Si. Amen, Sister Monique. 1 minute is Laudato Si Sunday law, Green Sunday law, Climate Change Sunday law. Another minute is Fidelity Month bill with a Fidelity Sunday law coming from a Republican politician in Congress. Another time it is what? Project 2025? Calling for a kind of Sunday law that gives exemptions to 7-day Sabbath keepers? No sure word of prophecy. This is embarrassing.
Sister Nisa, you forgot one, COP 28.
COP 28, COP 27, COP 26, COP 25, COP 24, I think we have up to with Mr. Henriquez. That's why you can't follow them, because they don't have the spirit of prophecy. And I will show you one man right after Olatunji, who though he says nice things. Oh, don't look to Europe for the Sunday law. Don't look to climate change. Don't look to Pope Francis. Look to the apostate Protestants in America. This is what Mrs. White said. And yet he comes and reads Project 2025, and reads it as if a Sunday law is in it. And then comes with this crazy, wrong reasoning as to why he claims Seventh-day Adventists are being caught in not looking at the apostate Protestants, claiming it is because they sided with the apostate Protestants on vaccination, on COVID vaccine and so on. I say, what? Only to realize he could say that because he's one of those compromising Adventists that threw religious liberty to the curb when he supported the COVID-19 vaccine. And so he blaming Adventists, saying the reason why y'all not seeing Project 2025 because your eyes stick on Pope Francis and your eyes stick on pushing against the COVID vaccine and so on because you're following the apostate Protestants. So you can't see what the apostate Protestants are doing. You ever hear anything more twisted? I will show you Pastor Ivan Myers doing that. Let's finish hearing Olatunji.
Employees with a sincere religious observance of a Sabbath at a different time, Friday sundown to Saturday sundown. The obligation would transfer to that period. What? The obligation would transfer to that period what? Instead. Houses of worship. How do you interpret that, brother?
If you say you're faithful Seventh-day Adventist, they'll transfer that time and a half to Saturday. If you support.
To start. We know that's the law of attraction. But we know that it's going to get worse. Ellen G. White says as milder measures fail, the most oppressive laws will be enacted. It says houses of worship to the limited extent that they may have FLSA covered employees. That's the labor unions. See? And employers legally required to operate around the clock, such as hospitals and first responders, would be exempt, as would workers otherwise exempt from overtime. But listen to this. Alternative view. Now here's what it is right here, baby. While some conservatives believe that the government should encourage certain religious observance. Stop.
This is a part that Nuges did not read. It's right below. But Olatunji is reading it now. And you would see that what they are saying is that there's an alternative view. That we are actually divided on the issue of how we will regulate or encourage Congress to regulate a Sabbath rest. And they'll explain why.
Alternative view. Now here's what it is right here, baby. While some conservatives believe that the government should encourage certain religious observance. Stop. Encourage? How the government going to encourage religious observance? You have to make it a law. Weren't we encouraged to get the jab? Then they wanted to make it legal. Am I right? It says, while conservatives believe that the government should encourage certain religious observance by making it more expensive for employers and consumers to not partake in those observances, other conservatives believe that the government's role is to protect, no, this is tricky, the free exercise of religion by eliminating barriers as opposed to erecting them. Meaning that we need to have Sunday laws in the name of religious liberty.
Oh my gosh. Did you see what he did there? He turned the people confessing that some among them do not agree that they should touch it at all. Just leave it as it is. Let people sort that out. Some believe that you shouldn't do anything. It says other conservatives believe that the government's role is to protect the free exercise of religion by eliminating barriers to the free exercise of religion, as opposed to erecting them. And they're saying that, well, if you impose overtime pay on employers to try to assure people getting religious exemption on the Sabbath, which by default is Sunday, but it could also be Friday evening to Saturday evening for Seventh-day Adventists. If you do that, you are instead erecting a barrier to religious liberty. This is what some among them are saying. And they're telling you this is the kind of disagreements we're having among ourselves. He say, oh, there's a tricky way of saying enforce Sunday law in the name of religious liberty. But look, they already said that they agree with giving time for Sabbath too, by making it harder for you to put your employee to work on the 7-day Sabbath by imposing overtime if they do that. And even that, my dear people, is not a true Sunday law, because when it comes to Sunday law, nobody ain't going to be accommodating any work at all on Sunday. To say, oh, well, if you want, you could work, you could make them work on Sunday, no, but just mean you'll have to pay more overtime. Nobody's going to do that in a real Sunday law. There will be no work. And a matter of fact, go to church on Sunday. All kind of things, all kind of speculations. He's throwing into the people's words to make it say what he is saying.
Whereas imposing overtime rules on the what day would lead to higher costs and limited access to goods and services and reduced work available on the Sabbath, while also incentivizing some people through higher wages to desire to work on the Sabbath. The proper role of government in helping to enable individuals to practice their religion is to reduce barriers to work options and to fruitful employer and employee relations. The result, ample job options that do not require work on the what day? Which we know to them is what? Sunday, so that individuals in roles that sometimes do require Sabbath work are empowered to negotiate directly with their employer to achieve their desired schedule. That desired schedule is going to be, let's do what Chick-fil-A does, let's do what Hobby Lobby does, give me my Sundays off.
He also said you could get 7-day Sabbath off.
It's right there. I didn't have to read the other 899 pages. That was the part I was concerned about. And guess what? I found it. Look at this. Sabbath rest. Why are they worrying about Sabbath rest as part of a conservative movement? You know why? Because God had told us already that they would. That's right. Do you see the handwriting on the wall?
God had told us already that conservative politicians in America would agitate for a Sunday law. God had told us that the false prophet, apostate Protestants, would agitate using spiritualism's miracles for a Sunday law. And they, with spiritualism's miracles, would deceive, especially those conservative politicians who are more friendly towards apostate Protestants. So you see, you have to be so careful when you're listening to them. You have to be so mindful, because they are moving away from the pattern of the prophecy still, even though they're talking about America this time, and even though they're talking about conservative or right-wingers in America.